and I'm a poet. As a poet, I find that people often say this thing, no one reads poetry. And my favorite response to that is something that comes from the late poet C.D. Wright. And what she has to say portrays a sentiment that I feel myself. And this is what I love about poetry, and what I love about events like this is poetry's ability to help us find our voice in others and connect with others. So this is what C.D. Wright had to say. I read poetry. I am somebody. I am the people too. It can be allowed that an industrious quantity of contemporary American poetry is consciously written for a hermetic constituency. The bulk is written for the bourgeoisie, leaving a lean cut for labor. Only the hermetically aimed has a snowball's chance in hell of reaching its intended ears. One proceeds from this realization. A staggering figure of vibrant, intelligent people can and do live without poetry, especially without the poetry of their time. This figure includes the unemployed, the rank and file, the union brass, banker, scientist, lawyer, doctor, architect, pilot, and priest. It also includes most academics, most of the faculty of the humanities, most allegedly literary editors, and most allegedly literary critics. They do so, go forward in their lives toward their great reward in an engulfing absence of poetry, without being perceived or perceiving themselves as hobbled or deficient in any significant way. It is nearly true. Though I am often reminded of a Thomas Transtromer poem I saw in a crummy office outside in an office building in San Francisco. We got dressed and showed the house. You live well, the visitor said. The slum must be inside you. If I wanted to understand a culture, my own, for instance, and if I thought such an understanding were the basis for a lifelong inquiry, I would turn to poetry first, for it is my confirmed bias that the poets remain the most stunned by existence, the most determined to redeem the world in words. Thank you.
As you all know, we put out a survey for several months asking people to contribute what was their favorite poem, digitally or on paper, and we had over 120 people participate and submit their favorite poems. A great diversity of poems were chosen. There was only one poem that had several chosen, which was Mary Oliver's Wild Geese, which is our closing poem tonight, and that received 5. So that just tells you like there were very few duplicates. We had a great diversity of poems, and we chose 15 of you to come and share them tonight. Thank you for doing that.
I love poetry. My father was an amateur poet. My grandfather was an amateur poet. Nothing ever really published, but it was something around our house. I grew up my hometown. I think Deirdre had asked us to say our hometown. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I have not lived there since the early 90s, but I'm from the heart of Illinois. My poem was one that I was trying to be supportive of the group, never expected to be selected, and this was the first poem that came to mind when I was like, what is my favorite poem? So thanks again for picking my poem. It is Aunt Tabitha, the young girl's poem. For context, I was blessed with a very particular maiden aunt. My great Aunt Lena always knew the correct thing to do in every situation. And when I read this poem for the first time as a preteen, I really wondered how Oliver Wendell Holmes was able to capture this perspective so well, and how it resonated with me as pretty spot on, even though it was written over a century ago. And as a grown woman and an aunt to 5 nieces, who also shares my very own strongly held views, beliefs, opinions, returning to this poem was really a pleasure. And so I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. I have checked this out from the library, but I will be returning it should you care to explore more of Oliver Wendell Holmes' poetry. Aunt Tabitha, the young girl's poem. Whatever I do, whatever I say, Aunt Tabitha tells me that isn't the way. When she was a girl, 40 summers ago, Aunt Tabitha tells me they never did so. Dear Aunt, if only I would take her advice, but I like my own way. I find it so nice. And besides, I forget half the things I'm told, but they will all come back to me when I am old. If a youth passes by, it may happen, no doubt. He may chance to look in, as I chance to look out. She would never endure such an impertinent stare. It is horrid, she says, and I mustn't sit there. A walk in the moonlight has pleasures I own, but it isn't quite safe to be walking alone. So I'll take a lad's arm, just for safety, you know. But Aunt Tabitha tells me they didn't do so. How wicked we are! How good they were then! They kept at arm's length those detestable men. What an era of virtue she lived in! But stay, were all the men such rogues in Aunt Tabitha's day? If the men were so wicked, I'll ask my papa how he dared to propose to my darling mama. Was he like the rest of them? Goodness, who knows? And what shall I say if a wretch should propose? I am thinking, if Aunt knew so little of sin, what a wonder Aunt Tabitha's aunt must have been. And her grandaunt? Oh, it scares me. How shockingly sad that we girls of today are so frightfully bad. A martyr will save us. Nothing else can. Let me perish to rescue some wretched young man. Though when to the altar a victim I go, Aunt Tabitha will tell me she never did so.
Hi, I'm Haley Wilhelmsen, and I am a junior in creative writing and psychology. I'm from Durango, Colorado. The poem I chose today is called A Color of the Sky by Tony Hoagland. And there are a lot of reasons I picked this poem. I love it for a variety of reasons. Partially, it's a great spring poem. But two, because I get a lot that people don't understand poetry in my life. People say that they can't read it because they don't understand it, and I think that's just kind of a cop-out answer. But I think that's in part because people have this idea of artists and poets that they're in this like different group than everybody else, that their life is so different that they don't, stand in grocery lines and deal with traffic, that they're just up all night, drinking coffee and making art. And I don't see that to be the case. To me, the job of an artist or a poet is to see the everyday things in life as beautiful and that tell some truth about the human experience. And as I was biking here, I was thinking about the David Foster Wallace graduation speech, This Is Water, I think it's called, where he's talking about what freedom means to him. And he says, the important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline and effort and being able to truly care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in myriad petty little unsexy ways every day. And to me, something that's beautiful about this poem is it is totally accessible and understandable, and to me shows all of those beautiful poetic moments that we see in our day-to-day life. So with that, A Color of the Sky by Tony Hoagland. Windy today, and I feel less than brilliant, driving over the hills from work. There are dark parts on the road when you pass through clumps of wood and the bright spots where you have a view of the ocean. But that doesn't make the road an allegory. I should call Mary and apologize for being so boring at dinner last night, but can I really promise not to be that way again? And anyway, I'd rather watch the trees, tossing in what certainly looks like sexual arousal. Otherwise, it's spring, and everything looks frail. The sky is baby blue, and the just unfurling leaves are full of infant chlorophyll, the very tint of inexperience. Last summer's song is making a comeback on the radio, and on the highway overpass, the only metaphysical vandal in America has written, "Memory loves time," in big black spray paint letters, which makes us wonder if time loves memory back. Last night, I dreamed of X again. She is like a stain on my subconscious sheets. Years ago, she penetrated me, but though I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed, I never got her out. But now I'm glad. What I thought was an end turned out to be a middle. What I thought was a brick wall turned out to be a tunnel. What I thought was an injustice turned out to be a color of the sky. Outside the youth center, between the liquor store and the police station, a little dogwood tree is losing its mind, overflowing with blossom foam like a sudsy mug of beer, like a bride ripping off her clothes, dropping snow-white petals to the ground in clouds. So nature's wastefulness seems quietly obscene. It's been doing that all week, making beauty and throwing it away and making more.
Hi, my name is Veronica Greuel. I'm the Director of Admissions and Recruitment in the College of Music here on campus. I'm from rural Illinois, not too far from Peoria. I grew up in a small town just outside of Effingham, and that is where my grandma, Rosemary Greuel, lived. And this poem is in many ways about her. My Cup is Overflowed is a poem about gratitude, love, and generosity. And my grandmother actually read this poem at her 65th wedding anniversary party, which, as a mother of 13 children, was not a small party. It's also the poem that her children chose to print in her funeral program last summer. Sorry. My grandma was a very kind woman. She lived her life in rural Illinois as a farmer's wife. Her life was not a comfortable one. Raising 13 kids on a farmer's living is not very easy to do. But she was, as my grandpa always said, kind and polite. She believed in loving those around you, keeping your net worth quite low, or you're keeping money from those who may need it. She believed in daily prayer and counting your blessings. And so this poem, like I said, more than anything else, captures her essence. So I'd like to dedicate this reading to her. Sorry. Oh. My Cup Has Overflowed by John Paul Moore. We've never made a fortune, and it's probably too late now. But we don't worry about that much. We're happy anyhow. And as we go along life's way, we're reaping better than we sowed. We're drinking from our saucer because our cup has overflowed. We haven't got a lot of riches, and sometimes the going's tough. But we've got loving ones all around us, and that makes us rich enough. We thank God for his blessings and the mercies he's bestowed. We're drinking from our saucer because our cup has overflowed. We remember times when things went wrong and our faith wore somewhat thin, but all at once the dark clouds broke and the sun peeped through again. So, Lord, help us not to gripe about the tough rows we've hoed. We're drinking from our saucer because our cup has overflowed. If God gives us strength and courage when the way grows steep and rough, we'll not ask for other blessings. We're already blessed enough. And may we never be too busy to help others bear their loads. Then we'll keep drinking from our saucer because our cup has overflowed. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aun Hasan Ali, and I am an assistant professor at the Department of Religious Studies. I'm from Queens, New York, and I'm going to be reciting a poem which doesn't really have a title, but perhaps goes by the first verse, which is Bazichach-e atfal dunya mira. The world is a plaything before me. I like this poem for the same reason that I like many of the poems written by Mirza Ghalib, who was a Mughal poet, because it defies anything but a literary analysis, and I dislike the trend of reading lines of poetry as though they were the seeds of philosophy or politics. So I'm going to read the poem and translate as I go along. I'm not going to follow the exact order of the verses as they're printed in the program. Bazichach-e atfal hai dunya mere aage, hota hai shab-o roz tamasha mere aage. Normally the first verse is read twice, but for the sake of time, I'm going to only read each verse once. The world is a plaything before me, night and day, a spectacle before me. एक खेल है औरंगे सुलेमा मेरे नज़दीक, एक बात है एजाज़े मसीहा मेरे आगे. The throne of Solomon is a game in my eyes, the miracle of Jesus just words before me. होता है निहा गर्द में सहरा मेरे होते, घिसता है जबी खाक पे दरिया मेरे आगे. In my presence, the desert's concealed in dust. The sea rubs its forehead on the shore before me. मत पूछ कि क्या हाल है मेरा तेरे पीछे, तू देख कि क्या रंग है तेरा मेरे आगे. Don't ask what state I'm in behind you. Just look to your own condition standing there before me. सच कहते हो खुद बीन ओ खुदा रा हूँ, ना क्यों हूँ. बैठा है बुते आईना सीमा मेरे आगे. I am indeed self-regarding and self-adoring. Why wouldn't I be? A mirror-faced idol is seated there before me. फिर देखिए अंदाज़े गुलफशानिए गुफ्तार, रख दे कोई पैमाना सहबा मेरे आगे. So look upon the ways of rose-scattering speech. Let someone place the flagon of wine before me. ईमा मुझे रोके है जो खींचे है मुझे कुफ्र, काबा मेरे पीछे है कलीसा मेरे आगे. Faith holds me back, unbelief pushes me forward. The Kaaba is behind me, the church before me. आशिक हूँ माशूक फरेबी है मेरा काम, आशिक हूँ माशूक फरेबी है मेरा काम, मजनू को बुरा कहती है लैला मेरे आगे. I am indeed a lover, but I desire to deceive beloveds. Even Layla vilifies Majnoon before me. गो हाथ को जुम्बिश नहीं आँखों में तो दम है, गो हाथ को जुम्बिश नहीं आँखों में तो दम है, रहने दो अभी सागरों मीना मेरे आगे. Though my hand is lifeless, my eyes can still see, so let the chalice and flagon remain before me. हम पेश आओ हम मशरबो हम राज है मेरा, हम पेश आओ हम मशरबो हम राज है मेरा, गालिब को बुरा क्यों कहते हो अब मेरे आगे. He shares my profession, my drink, and my secret. Why then would you vilify Ghalib before me? Thank you.
I'm Erin Frasier. I'm the Senior Director of Campus Communications and Engagement here on campus. And I'm bringing today I Carry Your Heart With Me, I Carry It In by E.E. Cummings. This poem has a lot of acquired meaning in my life, as much of the poetry that touches us does. We may initially fall in love with it because of the language, but then the interpretation that we receive over the course of our time with that poem also accretes around it in terms of that meaning and engagement with the words that are on the page. This poem was read at my wedding by a very dear friend, accompanied by the music of another very dear friend, and both have since passed, as has the person who introduced me to this song, the musician Michael Hedges, who covered this. So that acquired meaning and that accreted meaning of both loss and wistfulness, but also the celebration and joy that I have in the relationship with my husband. So 24 years of acquired meaning here on this page, births and anniversaries, celebrations, remarriage ceremonies. There's a lot here that I'm sure E.E. Cummings was not putting there, but I feel in my heart today. So I carry your heart with me. I Carry It In by E. Cummings. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my true. And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root, and the bud of the bud, and the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Knievel. My hometown is Centennial, Colorado. It was not Centennial when I was growing up there, but it is now, just down the road. I picked this poem because as a child I was profoundly fearful, shy to the point of not really being able to function. And I did a lot of reading at that time, and this poem helped me to remember not to be so afraid. So this is Listen to the Mustn'ts by Shel Silverstein. Listen to the mustn'ts, child. Listen to the don'ts. Listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossibles, the won'ts. Listen to the never haves, and then listen close to me. Anything can happen, child. Anything can be.
Hi, I'm Mike Breed. I'm a faculty member in ecology and evolutionary biology. It feels like the first day of spring, and so allergies have arrived, and I apologize for being a little husky. One thing that binds us together in academia is we discover stuff, but if you discover something and you don't write about it, it's as if you never discovered it. So as a scientist, I'm a writer. That's what I do. And sometimes I'm stuck. And so when I saw the call come out for this, I thought, what poem do I go back to just for inspiration? And it's called Writer's Block. It's by a Chinese poet scholar from the 3rd century, Lu Ji. But when the 6 emotions are stagnant, the will travels, but the spirit stays put. A petrified and withered tree, hollow and dry as a dead river. Then you must excavate your own soul. Search yourself till your spirit is refreshed, but the mind gets darker and darker. You must pull ideas like silk from their cocoon. Sometimes you labor hard and build regrets, then dash off a flawless gem. Though this thing comes out of me, I can't master it with strength. I often stroke my empty chest and sigh, what blocks and what opens the road? Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Kayla, and I am a master's student in linguistics, focusing on cognitive linguistics, so I'm all about the words. The poem I'm reading tonight, some of you might have read it before. It's your typical high school poem, and in fact, that's the first time I heard it. I was a senior in high school, and this is my favorite poem because it was the first poem that really got me excited about poetry and has stayed with me for such a long time. So the other day I told my friend I was reading this poem, and she goes, I know that poem. I hate that poem. I was like, okay, Chelsea, that's fair. Why do you hate it? And she's like, this guy, he's just so happy. He's just so happy. And I'm like, well, wait a second. What about the last part where he's bored and he's depressed and he hates life? And the whole point is that he's looking back and thinking about those moments that made life good. And life's not going to be good all the time, but the point is to build that bank on which you can draw from for when those moments do suck and you can think of something good, moments of pure bliss. And for me, just like for William Wordsworth, they come a lot from nature. So this is Daffodils by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not be but gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when I lie on my couch, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Plain. I'm a transfer student and an English major, and I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm going to be reading Brand New Ancients by Kate Tempest, and I'm terrified of speaking in front of people. But the reason I chose this poem was because of all the times it's helped me when I felt scared or lost. My brother gave me a copy of this, and it sat on my bookshelf for months, and one day I just decided to pick it up, and it helped me through a hard time. I felt like the poem found me, and ever since then, I felt like it's always found me in hard times. I'm just going to be reading an excerpt because it's really long, but I highly encourage everybody to read this in its entirety. So here's Brand New Ancients by Kate Tempest. In the old days, the myths were stories that we used to explain to ourselves. But how can we explain the way we hate ourselves, the things we've made ourselves into, the way we break ourselves into, the way we overcomplicate ourselves? But we are still mythical. We are still permanently trapped somewhere between the heroic and the pitiful. We are still godly. That's what makes us so monstrous. But it feels like we've forgotten we're much more than the sum of all the things that belong to us. The empty skies rise over the benches where the old men sit. They are desolate and friendless, and the young men spit. Inside they're delicate, but outside they're reckless, and I reckon that these are our heroes, these are our legends. That face on the street you walk past without looking at, or the face on the street that walks past you without looking back, or the man in the supermarket trying to keep his kids out of his trolley, or the woman by the post box fighting with her brawly. Every single person has a purpose in them burning. Look again and allow yourself to see them. Millions of characters, each with their own epic narratives, singing, "It's hard to be an angel until you've been a demon." The sky is so perfect it looks like a painting, but the air is so thick that I feel like we're fainting. Still, the myths in the city have always said the same thing, about how we all need is a place to belong, how all we need is to know what's right from what's wrong, and how all we need is to struggle to find out for ourselves which side we are on. We all need to love and be loved and keep going. There may be no monsters to kill, no dragon's teeth left for the sowing, but what there is the flowing of the rain down the gutters. What there is the muttering nutters. What we have here is a brand new mythic palette, the parable of the mate you had who could have been anything, but he turned out an addict. or the parable of the prodigal father returned after years in the wilderness. Our morality is still learned through experience, gained in these cities in all of their rage and their tedium. And yes, our colors are grayed and muted, but our battles are staged the same, and we are still mythical, call us by our names. We are perfect because of our imperfections. We must stay hopeful, we must stay patient, because when they excavate the modern day, they'll find us, the brand new ancients.
Hello, my name is Noel Perron. I am a third-year student here. I study creative writing and German studies. I'm from Wiesbaden, Germany, in the state of Hessen. And so I'll be reading Failing and Flying by Jack Gilbert. And for me, there is a story behind this poem. I mean, I came to this university as a, e-bio major, I believe? And I was miserable, is the basic story of that. And I didn't have much of a relationship with the arts, literature, poetry, film, music, anything like that. But I did happen to be walking around the hill with a couple of my friends, like within the first 2 months. And I stumbled upon the Innisfree bookstore and cafe. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. And I was just blown away. I was stunned, and I didn't really understand why. And I just came back the next day, and I bought my first poetry book ever, Fernando Pessoa, a collection of his works. And then the next day, October 16th, 2015, I wrote my first poem. And it was a very huge moment of healing for me as a person. And since then, I've changed my major, creative writing. I'm a poetry editor at Trident Press. And so it's just been a straight path forward through that because it is so important to me, and it's important to spread that and to be a part of that community, which I believe is a huge part of the human experience in an act of healing, because poetry is something that can listen as well as speak. And so Jack Gilbert's poem, Failing and Flying, I just remember I just happened to find it on the internet in high school, and it was the only poem I ever read. It ended up being my senior quote. And so here we go. Thank you. Failing and Flying. Everyone forgets that Icarus also flew. It's the same when love comes to an end, or the marriage fails and people say they knew it was a mistake, that everybody said it would never work, that she was old enough to know better. But anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Like being there by that summer ocean on the other side of the island while love was fading out of her, the stars burning so extravagantly those nights that anyone could tell you they would never last. Every morning she was asleep in my bed like a visitation, the gentleness in her like antelope standing in the dawn mist. Each afternoon I watched her coming back through the hot stony field after swimming, the sea light behind her and the huge sky on the other side of that. Listened to her while we ate lunch. How can they say the marriage failed? Like the people who came back from Provence when it was Provence and said it was pretty but the food was greasy. I believe Icarus was not failing as he fell, but just coming to the end of his triumph. Thank you.
My name is Genevieve Waller, and I work in CMCI. I'm the office manager for the Department of Advertising, PR, and Media Design. That's my day job. I'm an artist and a visual artist, and I'm also a DJ on Radio 1190. So the poem I chose is by John Ashbery. I used to live in Rochester, New York. That's where I lived before I moved here. And when I was there, he actually came to visit, and he read this poem. And he's from that area. He grew up in a town outside of Rochester called Sodus. And so it was interesting, him talking about his memories of living there as a kid. And he's kind of considered one of the most important poets in the U.S. in the 20th century. And he explained how he made this poem. So he did lots of experimental things over the decades of writing poetry. And this poem, he was looking at a book like the 1,000 Best Films Ever, and was looking at the index at all the titles, and he realized he could make a poem out of them. And I think what I like about this poem is it's this kind of found poem, like an exquisite corpse. But I think also knowing that he was a gay poet, he was a gay man, and if you kind of want to read the poem through that lens, it's a little bit of a critique or, I don't know, sideways glance at heteronormativity, because all these titles kind of assume, or if you know the movies that they're connected to, they're kind of telling the stories of straight people, more or less. So, and then the fact that every line begins with they in our kind of modern moment. They is, the term we use, a lot of people who are non-binary use. I think that that's an interesting connection to kind of our modern world and our expanding notions of gender and sexuality. So I'm going to read the poem now. And I'm from Wichita, Kansas. That's my hometown. They Knew What They Wanted by John Ashbery. I'm going to read the title again. They knew what they wanted. They all kissed the bride. They all laughed. They came from beyond space. They came by night. They came to a city. They came to blow up America. They came to rob Las Vegas. They dare not love. They died with their boots on. They shoot horses, don't they? They go boom. They got me covered. They flew alone. They gave him a gun. They just had to get married. They live. They loved life. They live by night. They drive by night. They knew Mr. Knight. They were expendable. They met in Argentina. They met in Bombay. They met in the dark. They might be giants. They made me a fugitive. They made me a criminal. They only kill their masters. They shall have music. They were sisters. They call me Bruce. They won't believe me. They won't forget. Thanks.
I'm Carla Hoa. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Finance and Business Strategy here at the University of Colorado Boulder. The poem that I am planning to read is called The Waking, and I realized that I have never had to actually pronounce the poet's name, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Theodore Rothke, I believe. So, The Waking, and it's a poem that for me speaks to me because a lot of the work that I do is about planning and structure and order and just trying to anticipate what the world is going to look like. And this poem for me started when I was still in college in this moment of discovery, and the world was new to me. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what was going to happen. And so what I found is that as I refer to it again and again over the years, there's relevance to me because it reminds me that there's still so much to learn, to discover, and that sometimes in that process of discovery is where the magic is. It's not about trying to create order or plan or know what it is or even anticipate what it is that life has to offer. So The Waking. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I feel my fate in what I cannot fear. I learn by going where I have to go. We think by feeling. What is there to know? I hear my being dance from ear to ear. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Of those so close beside me, which are you? God bless the ground. I shall walk softly there and learn by going where I have to go. Light takes the tree, but who can tell us how? The lowly worm climbs up a winding stair. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Great nature has another thing to do to you and me, so take the lively air, and lovely, learn by going where to go. This shaking keeps me steady, I should know. What falls away is always, and is near. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I learn by going where I have to go.
Hello everyone, I'm Ahib Tabriz, a first-year grad student in mechanical department. I'm from a small city just like Boulder from India. I'm going to read one of the prose poetry fable by Khalil Gibran on talking from The Prophet. It has a special significance for me as someone from engineering background. It was always been tough to think outside my black box. Consequently, it was difficult for me to convey ideas, connect with someone, or even with myself. The Prophet had made me realize or made a glimpse out of this illusion and confusion. Let me see that sometimes words can be a cage when it comes to expression, and sometimes silence can be the beautiful melody, and sometimes it's okay to be alone. On Talking by Khalil Gibran. You talk when you cease to be at peace with your thoughts. And when you can no longer dwell in your solitude of your heart, you live in your lips. And the sound is a diversion and a pastime. And in much of your talking, thinking is half murdered. For thought is a bird of space that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wing, but cannot fly. There are those among you who seek the talkative through fear of being alone. The silence of aloneness revealed to their eyes their naked self, and they would escape. And there are those who talk without knowledge or for thought reveal a truth which they themselves do not understand. And there are those who have truth within them, but they tell it not in words. In the bosom of such as this, the spirit dwells in rhythmic silence. When you meet your friend on the roadside or in the marketplace, let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue. Let the voice within you, your voice, speak to your ears, to his ears. For his soul will keep the truth of your heart as the taste of wine is remembered when color is forgotten and vessel is no more. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Colin Grushkin. I'm a senior here at the University of Colorado Boulder, studying within the Leeds School of Business, studying finance, and I also earned last year, finally, my minor in Russian language and culture. And it's been a very rewarding experience getting to be a student in those two drastically different departments. The poem I'll be reciting today is The Last Toast by Anna Akhmatova. I learned this actually when I was a sophomore in intermediate Russian, and while it is a very bleak poem in terms of the actual content, it's also known about the Russian language that the grammar system is probably the most difficult in learning the different cases. You have 6 cases, and this poem was actually a really big help in terms of getting to, first of all, know how to give a toast. You can actually learn from this poem, and you kind of learn how the feminine and masculine and neuter accusative all work out. So without further ado, I will recite the poem. Я пью за разоренный дом, за злую жизнь мою, за одиночество вдвоем, и за тебя я пью. За ложь меня предавший куб, за мертвый холод глаз, за то, что мир жестокий груб, за то, что Бог не спас. Thank you. О, конечно, пожалуйста.
By the way, I'm Deirdre Keating. I've already introduced myself, but I'm from Chicago, and this is a favorite poem of mine as well. I'm first-generation American. Both my parents are from Ireland, and I grew up one of 9. So I came from this very conservative family, and I often had a sense of duty to measure up to someone else's definition of what is good. And so I love Oliver's poem because to me, it is giving us, it reminds us of another family that we belong to, the natural world. And she conjures hope while still acknowledging despair. It's not, whitewashing it or making it one extreme or the other. And she doesn't use rhyme or really fancy vocabulary in it. I think it's a very accessible poem, but there is something lyrical in it that is musical and that lifts me up. So I hope I can do some justice to it. And I think in our story tomorrow, we'll give quotes from the different people who all submitted that poem, because one of the exciting things about poetry is that many people can read it and read a completely different poem by what they bring to it. Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about your despair, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.